All right, so I'm going to start all over again, guys. Sorry. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Angel Covarrubias. I work for federal and state education programs. Today's session is being recorded. For those individuals that were not able to attend today, we're going to make a recording available because it is very important that everyone gets trained on how to complete a multi-funded time report. Now, I'm going to start with the most obvious question. Why are you here? Okay. So you all at some point had your hours reduced, okay? And at some point you had your hours restored. So when they restored your position hours, they used something we call a general fund. So whenever we have a combination of general fund and categorical funding, like you're all funded out of 7SO46, we need to keep track of this time and those hours using a multi-funded time report. And I'll explain to you what this is in a bit. Okay. So this was a letter sent out to the principals, and it basically had this highlighted text here that I want to highlight to you. If the impacted positions are funded with Title I programs, a multi-funded time report may be necessary. The Office of Federal and State Education Programs will be in communication with the affected school sites. So this is our training for this process. Okay? And on the right-hand side, you're going to see that this is a sample of a multi-funded time report for restored positions for paraprofessionals. Okay. Now, I'm going to drop this presentation into the chat in a bit. And when you do, and I actually attached it, if you go into the invite, there is an Excel form, okay, on this, on the email that went out for the invitation for today. And if on the Excel form, there's a list that says multi-funded TAs restored position list. Okay. You can filter that by your site, and then you will find either your name, or if you're the time reporter, you will find the employees at your school site that had their hours restored. Okay. So let me start with today's objectives. We want to learn the purpose of completing time and effort documentation. We want to learn how to complete a multi-funded time report. Okay. And let's start with the big question. Why do we need time and effort documents? So we need time and effort documents because the federal government sends schools grant money that we use in the state of California for our Title I students. Title I eligible students, we receive money from the state, get sent to the school, and we buy personnel with this money, okay? Now, because this is very special grant money, there are restrictions as to how we can use this money, okay? This is our policy 264315, which basically tells us that whenever we have an employee that is multi-funded with a restricted fund, such as Title I, we need to complete, and a general fund, we need to complete what we call a multi-funded time report. Okay? Time and effort documents ensure money is spent according to the rules and regulations. Now, time and effort documents are legal documents because they do have to do with pay, and any pay documents are legal documents, okay? So in addition to time cards, okay, and this goes a little bit more into the details as to why we need to keep a multi-funded time report. We have our timesheet. We know we sign in, we sign out, okay? And because we are categorically funded, we know that we have to keep time and effort documents. And we know that payroll time reported must reflect the actual hours worked on each program as indicated in the supporting documentation. This is where our time reporters come in. This is, and I'll explain a little bit more, but basically the idea here is that whenever we have reported an SAP, has to match our multi-funded time report, okay? I mentioned 264315. If you have not had a chance to review this, this is our bulletin on time and effort documents for employees paid from federal and state categorical programs. There are 7 sections in this bulletin, and they basically guide you through the process of determining who needs time and effort documents. Okay, so let's start with a little quick check-in. Okay. Multiple choice quiz, and you can put this into the chat. Why do categorically funded personnel need time and effort documentation? Is it A, to make sure we get paid correctly? Is it B, to make sure funds are spent according to the rules they are intended for? Is it C, to follow the rules in Bulletin 264315? Or is the answer D, both B and C are correct? And you can go ahead and put that into the chat. And we have 100% so far, so this is great. We know everyone, I know it's Monday, I know it's hard, but we're all doing a great job so far. The answer is D, correct. To make sure that funds are spent according to the rules they intended for, and then to follow our own policy in 264315. Okay. There are going to be several points throughout the presentation where we're going to pause to ask questions. Okay, we're going to have a big Q&A towards the very end of the presentation, but is anybody have any questions? You can put them into the chat.
There are no questions in the
No
chat,
questions?
Angel.
Got it. Thank you, Diana. And then with me today also, just so you know, Diana Quiroga from our office is also monitoring the chat and will be helping us out by dropping in documents. Okay, so let's talk about what the difference this year versus last year, okay? Chances are last year you're 100% funded. So your time and effort documents, as you may or may not be aware, were what we call a periodic certification. This gets filled out twice a year. Okay? You don't need to sign it. It gets completed by your office staff or your Title I designee at the school site. And then the principal signs it, and then it gets filed and sent off to the district. This year, we have your position is what we call a multi-funded position. And basically what that means, okay, it's a fancy way of saying you have one job from two different funding sources, okay? So whenever we have a multi-funded position, we need to keep a multi-funded time report. And that's a combination of Title I funds and non-federal funds, such as 10330, which is a general fund that was used to restore your position. Okay. So as I was saying, on any normal year, you're 100% funded. There's a periodic certification that gets completed twice a year. The supervisor signs it, the time reporter files it. We keep that document at the school site for 5 years in case anybody ever asks for it. And this is what that certification looks like. Okay. When you are a multi-funded employee, okay, you complete a multi-funded time report on a daily basis, and it just gets signed monthly. The time reporter reviews it on a monthly basis to make sure that it matches the hours that are being reported in SAP, and the supervisor reviews it and signs it monthly. Okay. And again, this is what that document looks like. We're going to have a live session later on where I'm going to show you how to complete this. Okay. So what is time and effort for a multi-funded employee? Okay, again, this gets completed on a daily basis. It sounds intimidating, but I guarantee you that once you get a little bit of practice, it should take you no less than 3 or 4 minutes to get this document done. And when you have the electronic version, okay, and we encourage everyone to use the electronic version, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. Okay. Gets signed on a monthly basis. The time reporter ensures that it matches a time card. The supervisor reviews it and signs it on a monthly basis for any one position that is multi-funded. Okay. Again, this is a daily basis. Okay. We already have our template. So for those of you, if you go back to the calendar invite on your Outlook calendar, okay, I did attach this form on there. If you have not seen it, please make sure that you open it and save it and keep yourself a copy. So let's talk about what goes into completing your multi-funded timesheet or report, I should say. Okay, the individual's identifying information is added to the top, including the month, okay, or the pay period. The programs funding the position are added in the program name and program code section. So as an example, you see in this sample here, it says Title II, and then on the right-hand side, there's a program code. And then each day is accounted for with hours and activities per the program. Then once you enter time into that multi-funded time report, it automatically calculates it for you at the very bottom for the month. So this is kept on a monthly basis. And then I'm going to mention here your funding percentage, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. But at the end of the month, your multi-funded time report should match more or less your funding percentages. And we'll go into what that means a little bit later, but basically the idea is that you've been funded in a certain way and you want to make sure that you stay within that funding. Otherwise, your position will cause an imbalance in the way the position is funded, and that could create an issue for your school. So I mentioned activities. So on the left-hand side and at the very top of your MFTR, under the categorically funded section, you're going to put in your daily activities. Now, the beauty of paraprofessionals is that at the very least, you have a monthly or weekly schedule. You're following your schedule. You may be in a classroom, preparing, carrying out, following up on instruction in individual or small groups of students as assigned. You may be providing language support. You're assisting with prepping classroom instructional materials, okay? Or you're attending trainings for Title I, okay? So if I were to do this as an example, if I'm 50-50 funded for 2 hours of my day, okay, I'm going to put this 2 hours and I'm going to put I did activities 1, 2, and 3, and then it would automatically calculate that for me on the bottom. Now, I'm going to stress here, these are the categorical program funded activities. These are the allowable activities that you can do under the categorically funded program. Now, you can do these activities on the general funded program activities on the right-hand side. So if you wanted to, you could take some of these activities here, okay, and then complete them on here, but then you're going to add the wording for the general program, okay? And we'll go into some examples of what that means in a bit. Okay, so I talked about this. The left-hand side is your categorical program funded activities, general funded program activities on the right. The section on the left is for your allowable activities for the categorical program. Your allowable activities depend on the program. And then the activities serve as an umbrella statement and records like Outlook calendars or other notes can further support if audited. So you already, like I mentioned, have your set schedule. And then section on the right is for activities required by the state or district policies. Okay. So completing your MFTR. So I mentioned the very top of your MFTR. This is your categorically funded section of your MFTR. So this is where you're going to be putting hours and program activities, okay? And then the next section down is your restoration section. This is a section where you will be completing your time and activities for the general funded program activities. And again, you can take some of these activities and put them here on the right-hand side and just say this is what I'm doing for the general program, okay? And this here is your summary for the month. So I mentioned that this is a monthly document. So we're going to make sure that at the end of the month that it aligns to your program funding more or less. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a bit, okay? Now I mentioned at the end of the month, when you are done at the end of the month, the employee completes this and then signs it. Electronic signatures are fine, okay? You sign it, you date it, you hand it over to your time reporter. The time reporter, you are not necessarily in charge of this document, but you're in charge that at the end of the month, that whatever's on this document matches what you're reporting in SAP, okay? So we know that the principal is in charge of time and effort documents because they have to sign that certification form, attachment F, and send it into the district. Okay. So whatever system you have at your school site between you, the principal, maybe your Title I designee, okay, we all play a part in making sure that time and effort documents get completed and are accurate and are completed in a timely manner. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what does timely manner mean. Timely manner means that this should get signed within a week or two at the very latest within that end of the month. Okay. Um, a week is fine. The second week, you're cutting it a little close. In case there's any revisions, we want to make sure that it gets completed before then. Okay. So please sign at the end of the month. After the time reporter reviews it to match the timesheet, supervisor can then sign it. Okay. So this is kind of like a little process. The employee needs to sign it at the end of the month. The time reporter reviews it monthly, and MFTR needs to match the time card. And the reason I keep saying it needs to match the time card is oftentimes, we know things happen. People are absent, people are late. Okay, people have exams, anything that they need to do for school, and they may take a day absent, whether that's benefited or just an illness day. That employee takes their benefited time. Okay. And then we know that they may forget that they were absent on any particular day. They go ahead and go into their MFTR, they complete it, and then the time card has an absence or a benefited time absence, and then we know that they may not forget or remember to put it back onto their MFTR. So that's where the time reporter comes in to play. They just need to make sure that it records the same amount of time. At the end of this process, the supervisor receives it from the time reporter and then signs the final copy. Okay. And the MFTR can be stored in digital format. Okay. That's fine. If your school is very used to using electronic signatures, that works great. If a physical signature is something that you're used to, that's also fine. Okay. Go ahead and sign it. And then we just ask that whatever final copy, that everybody knows where the final copy is at. Okay. Um, you can place it in a binder for quick access if that's what you want to do. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about job duty activities. So you notice that your MFTR is already pre-populated with your job activities. These should not be generic. Right now they are generic on your MFTR, but those are the allowable activities. And you can add some of those on the right-hand side if that's what you do. Okay. As an example, if you do supervision for part of your day, you're supervising on the yard, that is okay as long as you're reporting those times under the general program and that doesn't throw off your funding percentage off. Okay. And know and understand what activities are allowable under your categorical funding. Categorical activities are interchangeable with general funded activities. Like I said, you can take the ones on the left and report them on the right. That is fine, but you cannot take what's on the right and report it on the left. Okay. The allowable activities will populate the left-hand side of your activities, while the rest will populate on the right-hand side under the general program funding activities. Okay. Okay, let's have another little quick and then we'll stop for some questions. I know that was a lot of information. Okay. How often should I complete my multi-funded time report? Should I only complete it when I ask for it? Should I complete it every day? Okay, at the end of the month when it's due? Okay, so what is the correct answer? Go ahead and put it into the chat. And I do see. Okay, I see a lot of B's. Okay, I see a C. Okay, okay. And the correct answer is B, right? This has to be done on a daily basis, okay? Why? Because at the end of the month, that's when it's due. And so it needs to be completed by then, okay? And I'm gonna stop here. I know Diana is been monitoring the chat, and I know Jose Arquin has also been answering some questions. But Diana or Jose, do we have any questions that we need to clarify? No?
Sorry, no. We have
No?
answered all the questions in the chat.
Got it. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit more about roles and responsibilities. Supervising official can be the principal or the assistant principal who oversees the program. They can sign the MFTR. Okay. The office manager or SA, if there's a time reporter, they can remind the employee to fill out the form electronically. They can monitor the activities are filled in correctly, notify the principal to sign the MFTR, and provide the employee with a hard copy at the end of the month for record keeping. Okay. The employee, your job is to fill this out on monthly basis, also just every day, and ensures the hours are calculated per day for each side of the program. And your job is to sign the MFTR at the end of the month. Okay. So we know that systems for maintaining documentation can vary from site to site. Okay. Electronic files work. If you want to set up, as an example, a Google folder, anything on a OneDrive or a SharePoint, Teams, anything like that, that would work to save the final copy of your signed MFTR. Make sure multiple people have access to it. Make sure everyone knows the process. Okay. And if you are old school, and I'm not afraid to say it, I am old school. I love binders. Okay. Um, we can keep binders and make sure that the final copy ends up in there. But we also just want to make sure that we set up our electronic version for the employee on an electronic version of the document. Okay. But the most important thing is we want to make sure that everyone knows and understands the process of how to complete and where to store your MFTR. Okay. I mentioned the binder. Okay. The binders are great because these are frequently audited documents. Okay. And we want to make sure that there's a copy available for anyone that asks for it. Okay. So whatever system is used, make sure the supervisors, the time reporter, and the employee know and understand the system. Okay. And then importantly, files should be kept for up to 5 years because these are, like I mentioned, legal documents. I mentioned frequently audited documents, okay? And I'm gonna tell you guys that come January, we are gonna do a little bit of sampling. We're gonna select a few of these MFTRs, okay? We're gonna look at them, we're gonna review them, see how while they're being completed, and then we will provide feedback to the school and the employee for completing this document. Okay, on an annual basis, we have our own internal auditing firm. This auditing firm is known as Simpson and Simpson. These are certified public accountants. They request multi-funded time documentation on a yearly basis. So this is why we place importance on making sure that the employee is trained on how to complete this document. Right? And then the Department of Education reviews us every 2 years. This is federal programs monitoring. And this occurs on a biannual basis. So every 2 years, they will request, they will select a site, and they may also ask for MFTR documents. Okay. And then we have the time and effort documentation, who reviews it. Okay. Tips for success. Okay. So the employee log in the activities and hours on a daily basis. Okay. Complete the MFTR by the end of each month. Convert the Excel into a PDF, date it, sign it. Okay, update your duty statement as needed throughout the year, or your activities in this case. Time reporters have all your MFTRs in a central location if you have more than one employee. Could be a SharePoint, Google Drive, or binder. Review the MFTRs at the end of each month, make sure that and make the necessary payroll adjustments if necessary. Collect the supervisor's signature and file it and keep it for 5 years. Okay. All right. And we're going to have a quick live session. We're actually going to go ahead and open up our MFTR template, and then we're going to be coming back to this document. And I'm going to stop the recording at this point. Actually, I'm just going to pause it.